Fasting is for the whole body, from head to toe. It's not just from food and drink. It's not just from sexual desires. We have to fast with our eyes and ears, with our tongue in terms of what we say, with our hands and feet, with our stomachs and private parts. In previous in Banu Israel, part of fasting was remaining silent. That's why when Maryam alayhi salam gave birth to Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, and she was worried about facing her people, about their objection to how this child came about, she was instructed to say to them with an indication, Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawma, I've made an intention for fasting for Allah Ta'ala. Falan ukallima al-yawma insiya, I'm not going to talk to any person today. So in previous silence was part of fasting. We've not been instructed in this to remain silent in that we can't say salam to somebody, or we can't interact with somebody as necessary or appropriate. But that doesn't mean that silence isn't a virtue. Man samata naja. Silence leads to salvation. And one of the major causes for people being thrust headlong into the fire of Jahannam on the day of Qiyamah is the yield of their tongues. It's like planting something. Every time you speak, you are planting seeds. Our a'mal in this dunya are abstract. We can't see them or measure them. Sometimes we can't directly see their effect. But in the akhirah, it will become manifest. Our a'mal will be measured. There are many things which are abstract. In the dunya, we measure them. We measure the pressure of the air around us, the pressure in your tires. We measure temperature, speed. These things are abstract. They're not something that you can physically grasp. You can think about them and understand them. A'rad. But they are measured in the dunya. So if this is possible for us, then it's certainly possible for Allah. And our a'mal will be given physical features. They will appear in a physical form on the day of Qiyamah. Indeed, even in the qabr, and the fruits of Jannah, the trees of Jannah, the ni'mas of Jannah are a manifestation, a physical manifestation of the actions that we do in this world. You know how in the virtual world of computing, you can imagine something and then with a few keystrokes, you can see it being realized. Many people spend a large part of their life, some adult children as well, creating an alternative world, a virtual world for themselves. So in the dunya, what we do becomes not a virtual world, it becomes an actual world in the akhirah. And it will manifest as such. And so, fasting is from head to toe. It's about what we do with the whole of our bodies, with our eyes. And this is a big one. And we say it so often, but we can't be reminded too often, because this barrage of material which is on your screens and on the billboards and on the streets, and therefore, as a consequence, the impact of that on the heart and the subconscious mind as well. And if you spend this is why i'tikaf is so powerful. You spend your time in the masjid, you spend a few hours doing dhikr, tilawat, ibad, nothing else. You might find yourself in that same nurani mode when you are half awake, half asleep. You wake up in the night and you're reciting an ayat that you were reciting that day or you heard being recited. Your tongue is engaged in dhikr. That's because your heart has begun to become alive. It's been watered. It's become radiant. So the dead earth comes to life when it's irrigated, and the heart comes to life through dhikr and Quran and ibadat and tilawat and so forth. So this experience, and everybody has their share of it, and we ought to sort of expand, increase in this path if we can. And this is the perfect opportunity. So the eyes and the ears is what we listen to. And that includes, by the way, music. This is something which the Prophet ﷺ prohibited. and the content of much of that as well. It just excites the sexual desires oftentimes. It leads to people being constantly in a state of arousal, and some of it is very violent. A lot of the rap and the things that people listen to. So this is not the ideal, stream of information, and then you'll fall asleep while listening to something. So basically, your ruh has been taken, your soul, from your body that night, while you've been engaged in something which has got nothing to do with the akhirah, with Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's hardly a preparation for our actual final moment, which we should be practicing for every time we fall asleep. Allahumma bismika amutu wa ahya. And then our tongues, what we say with them, not just what we eat and don't eat. When we're fasting, we don't eat and drink. It's what we say with them. And the ears, it's listening to backbiting, it's listening to slander. And with the tongue, it's the things that we say. Avoiding lying, slander, backbiting, falsely accusing somebody. Our majalis, subhanallah, if you make an effort that from morning till evening, from dawn till dusk, I'm not going to say anything which is not permissible. You might find that possible. You will find it possible. You might find it more difficult, avoiding the same entering into your ears. And so what we need to do is call it out. When you're with your friends and your family and people you're close to, if someone starts backbiting, then change the subject, or even hint to them that we're fasting. Because otherwise we're going to continue to that same path. And from a psychological point of view, they say that if you do something, the ulama say 40 days it becomes permanent. They say that you develop new neural pathways in your brain if you do something for 21 days. And then if you want to reinforce it, then you carry on for an approximate time of 6 weeks. So if we make new habits, then those positive emotions and those nurani thoughts will become the norm. And it's avoiding sins with the hands and feet, the places we go to, and it's the interactions that we have. So fasting is from head to toe. It's not just about avoiding food and drink. And as I say every year, I'm going to say again, look, this ni'mah, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Allah Ta'ala mentions شَهْرُ رَمَضَانَ الَّذِي أُنزِلَ فِيهِ الْقُرْآنِ. It's a great ayah. And it concludes with this theme, shukr. That we should observe shukr that Allah has given us Ramadan. Subhanallah. So if you have any sense of reservation and negativity in the mind, oh no, it's Ramadan, as though it were a burden, then you're not really observing shukr. Our hearts should be glad. Allah Ta'ala, alhamdulillahi ala ni'matil Islam. Wa kafa bihi ni'ma. Raditu billahi rabban. Wa bil Islami dinan. Wa bi Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam nabiyyan. That I'm glad to be a Muslim. I'm glad that Allah is my Rabb. And that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is my Rasul and Nabi. And that Islam is my deen. I'm perfectly happy with this. And I'm perfectly happy to fast. And when those waves of thirst and hunger do, or those cravings for particular foods or whatever, they come across you, then let's take them with grace and enjoy that, because that's the point. That's what's beneficial for us. We've enjoyed food and drink all year. Let us relish the hunger and thirst, as indeed the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum did. They enjoyed a pleasure in this. Subhanallah. And of course, there's the physical pleasure, benefits of this as well as the spiritual ones. So fasting then is from head to toe. It's about avoiding the prohibitions completely. And it's about immersing ourselves in the obedience of Allah, in His ibadah and worship, in all our affairs. May Allah Azza wa Jal grant us tawfiq and fill our hearts with His love and the love of His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.